What if the pain you've been running from is the very thing that could set you free? You've been pretending to be okay for so long, you've forgotten what real peace feels like. But behind that silent ache, there's something waiting, something ancient, something powerful. And it starts the moment you stop pretending. Maybe you're just tired of being the strong one, tired of keeping up an image that looks put together, while inside you're quietly falling apart. And if that's where you are, I want to tell you something that very few people have the courage to say. As long as you try to avoid pain, it will own you. As long as you numb yourself just to survive. As long as you hide behind strength to keep the world out, you will remain a prisoner to everything that hurts you. The words that sting, the betrayals that leave you breathless, the silence that makes you feel invisible. And no, that's not weakness. That's what it means to be human. The only difference is some of us are just better at pretending. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become." And that's the doorway. The answer isn't to harden. It isn't to shut down. It isn't to pretend that nothing touches you. The real path is integration. This is what shadow work truly is, the courageous act of integrating the parts of you that once lived in the dark. It's learning to bring into the light all the parts of you that still ache in the dark. Because strength isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of awareness even while you're bleeding. So if you're still here reading these words, it's not an accident. This message is for you. For the one who's tired of hurting over and over. For the one who feels emotionally powerless, like the world holds a strange grip over your heart. Let me show you something that could set you free. But to do that, you'll have to be willing to hear a truth that may sting. And maybe for the first time, that pain will be what liberates you. You think the pain is coming from out there, from what they said, from who left, from the betrayal you didn't see coming. But here's the brutal truth. Nothing outside of you can truly hurt you unless there's already an open wound inside. What really hurts is not what they did. It's what it awakened. It's the old stories you tell yourself, the unresolved pain, the empty places inside that you've covered with pride, with strength, with the desperate need to appear okay. Jung taught us the pain we feel from the outside world is just a mirror, a reflection of what we have yet to heal inside. That's why some people can walk through fire and remain clear, while others break at a single word. It's not what happens to us, it's what it touches inside of us. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You're still suffering because deep down you believe you can control how others treat you. You're still trying to be good enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as if that will protect you from pain. But control is an illusion. And the more you cling to it, the more exhausted you become, trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to prevent the inevitable. So if you want to stop suffering, stop trying to protect yourself from suffering. You don't need more control. You need more awareness. As long as you believe people need to change so you can feel peace, you'll remain chained to their actions. Your freedom begins the moment you realize nothing from the outside has power unless it finds something inside you to latch onto. And this is where the real battle begins, the unconscious, the part of you that you can't see, the part you don't understand, the part that controls you until you face it. That's where we're going next, deeper into the shadow, deeper into the truth. because that's where transformation begins. And if this is resonating with you, click the subscribe button. You're not alone. And this journey, it's just getting started. Have you ever found yourself reacting without knowing why? Feeling waves of emotion without understanding where they come from? Making decisions you thought were right, only to sabotage them later? Carl Jung explained it clearly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that is exactly what's happening to you. This is the essence of shadow work. The process of turning unconscious pain into conscious understanding. That sudden anger that flares up out of nowhere, that heavy sadness that creeps in for no reason. That tightness in your chest when someone says something harmless, but it cuts like a blade. These are invitations to begin your shadow work signals from the unconscious, asking to be seen, understood, and healed. None of it is random. They are messages, signals from deep within you, from parts of yourself that you've forgotten, ignored, or buried. Jung called this hidden territory the unconscious, but it's not some vague fog of thoughts. It's a living force, an entire internal ecosystem made up of memories, traumas, desires, fears, all the things you didn't want to feel, so you pushed them under. But here's the thing, you can't bury pain without planting it, and now it's growing in places you can't control. You wonder why certain words destroy you while others barely flinch. It's because those words land on wounds still open. And if they still hurt, it's because you've never really looked at them. You've only swept them under the rug. And now you keep tripping over the same damn spot. Jung said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." So what have you been doing judging yourself? Suppressing your feelings? Silencing your inner world as if ignoring it could somehow make it disappear. But the unconscious doesn't vanish just because you deny it. It just finds sneakier, more painful ways to speak. In toxic relationships, you keep repeating. In patterns of self-sabotage you can't explain. In anxiety and fear that show up exactly when everything seems to be going well. This is not bad luck. It's not chaos. It's your soul trying to wake you up. But you keep hitting snooze. If you want to be someone who is no longer broken by life, then stop running from what lives inside you. Because as long as you're blind to your unconscious, you will be a puppet. Not to the world outside, but to the emotions within. And the more you try to shield yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to internal torment. But there is a way out, and it's not through defense, it's through integration. Becoming untouchable is not about building walls. It's about knowing yourself so deeply that nothing outside can shake what's been healed within. Most people believe the only way to avoid getting hurt is to shut down. So they build walls, wear masks, and call it strength. They say, "I don't care anymore. Nothing gets to me." But inside, they're bleeding. Because the problem has never been about feeling. The real problem is not knowing what you're feeling and why. And that only happens to people who haven't yet met themselves. Jung once said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques. But as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul. And the soul you've been hiding, behind your toughness, your silence, your invulnerability, that soul is aching to be seen." Emotional strength is not coldness. It is not detachment. It's not pretending you're fine when you're not. It is the radical act of integration, of standing in the light, with your shadows fully visible, and not flinching. You don't become untouchable by avoiding the world. You become untouchable when you realize no one can wound what you have already welcomed within. When you've made peace with your fears, with your flaws, with your shame, there is nothing left for the world to use against you. You stop reacting. You start choosing. You are no longer a slave to your emotions. That is true freedom. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who others expected, not who society conditioned you to be, but who emerges when your light and your shadow meet. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And here's the truth that no one ever told you. The more you run from pain, the more it chases you. The more you try not to be affected, the more fragile you become. But when you stop and turn around to face your own wounds, when you stop trying to be strong and start being real, that's when everything changes. And that's the paradox, isn't it? The moment you embrace everything inside you, the beautiful and the broken, the noble and the shameful, the light and the shadow, that's when you finally become whole. Because once you've welcomed it all, nothing outside of you has the power to dismantle you. But this path isn't for the faint of heart. It requires something rare in today's world. Courage. The courage to look within, to drop the masks, to feel what you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Because the truth is, transformation hides in the places that hurt the most. And in this next part, we're going to walk straight into the fire, not to burn, but to be reborn. You were taught to hate pain. From the time you were little, you were told that suffering was weakness, that crying was pointless, that feeling too deeply was a flaw. So you began to run, to avoid, to deny. But here's the cruel twist. The more you run from pain, the faster it finds you. And it learns to wear disguises. It becomes anxiety, anger, apathy, self-destruction, boredom you can't explain, impulses that seem to come from nowhere. Ignored pain does not disappear. It digs tunnels through your being until one day, without warning, everything collapses. But Jung saw pain differently. To him, suffering wasn't the enemy. It was the voice of the soul, a signal from the unconscious, a sacred alarm crying out for your attention. He said, "Depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't send her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, and listen to what she has to say. But instead of listening, you numb. You scroll. You work. You stay busy. You drown yourself in distraction. All so you don't have to sit with your own soul. But what is that pain trying to show you? Here's the truth. Suffering only hurts this much, because you are still at war with yourself. There's a part of you that longs to grow, and another part, your ego, that clings to the familiar. The comfort of control, the illusion of safety. This inner conflict is what gives birth to pain. Because real change hurts. Growth hurts. Letting go hurts. Ending toxic patterns hurts. And so begins the grieving. An internal death, a spiritual funeral. The kind no one sees, but you feel in your bones. But in that very space, the space where everything falls apart, something new begins. Because when the old stories collapse, when you're stripped of your masks, when pain exposes your rawest truth, that's when you finally see yourself, not the version you perform, not the version you project, but the soul that has always been there waiting to be remembered. And that is when suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you to your knees in front of the one thing that can truly set you free yourself. Jung knew this. He didn't see suffering as a system failure. He saw it as part of the divine unfolding. Pain is not the end. It's the beginning. The first step on the path to becoming whole. The problem: most people never cross the valley. They get close. They feel the heat, and they turn back. They distract themselves. They choose comfort. They go back to surviving. But not you. If you're still here, it means you're ready. Ready to step beyond the surface. Ready to descend into the shadow and rise on the other side. That descent is the beginning of shadow work, the inner journey through pain illusion and back into wholeness. And in the next part, we'll explore that exact crossing, what Jung called individuation. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's brutal. But it's also the most liberating thing you will ever experience, because few people even begin the journey of individuation, and fewer still finish it. Why? Because this path doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't promise applause. It doesn't protect your ego. It destroys it. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming who you truly are. But that means unlearning who you thought you were. And that hurts more than any betrayal. You begin to see that what you thought was you, your accomplishments, your trauma, your image, was all built to survive. But surviving is not living. Individuation is life's invitation to something greater. It is the call to rise above survival, to meet yourself beyond the persona, beyond the mask, beyond the noise. The unconscious begins to push everything you've repressed to the surface, and you can't run anymore. Jung warned us, the persona is a mask of collective convenience. To individuate, you must tear off that mask even if it feels like ripping off your own skin so you can finally meet what's underneath. And it is there in the ashes of illusion that something unshakable begins to form. Not because you are untouched, but because you have walked through fire. You've looked shame in the eye, faced your hunger for approval, stared down your rage, and said, "I see you. You are no longer in control." That is what it means to be truly untouchable. There comes a moment, quiet but undeniable, when you begin to see clearly, even in the face of your own darkness. And in that clarity, you discover a strength that no longer depends on validation, on recognition, on control. You no longer need everyone to love you. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to wear the mask of being strong all the time. Because now, you know who you are. And that knowing, that unshakable truth within, can never be taken from you. True emotional armor isn't something you wear. It's not a shell to keep the world out. It's a center, a core of consciousness that holds you steady no matter what storms may come. Yes, you may still feel pain. Yes, life may still wound you, but you don't fall apart anymore. Because you've stopped reacting, you've stopped chasing, you've stopped trying to outrun your shadows. You've become whole. You've left the surface behind. And now you live in the depths. But here's the truth no one warns you about. Depth comes with a cost, not the cost of isolation, but of loneliness. Not because you're truly alone, but because few people are willing to go where you've gone. Most remain at the surface, still hidden behind their masks, still afraid of their own feelings, still pretending. And so, When you begin to free yourself, you naturally drift away. But hear this, that distance is not rejection. It is evolution. It is growth. It is alignment. You're not walking away out of pride. You're rising, and you no longer fit where you used to hide. This leads us to the final revelation of this journey. Consciousness is your shield. It's not brute strength that protects you. It's not a hardened heart. It's clarity. Because once you see, truly see nothing, nothing has power over you. So let's complete this crossing together. You've come this far, and now it's time to finish it. There is something you need to hear clearly, gently, but firmly. Nothing outside of you will ever stop hurting you, as long as you remain unconscious of what's going on within. The words will keep cutting. The rejections will keep stinging. The losses will keep dragging you down until you wake up. And awakening. It's not some magical moment. It's not a thunderbolt or a grand revelation. It is a choice. A daily one. It's choosing to look inward even when it hurts. To take ownership of what you feel without blaming your past, your parents, your ex, or the universe. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You've spent your whole life resisting the fear of not being enough, the emptiness of rejection, the sting of loneliness, the ache of not being seen. And what did you do with that pain? You hid it. You silenced it. You tried to control everything. You tried to be perfect, to be untouchable, to be strong. And now, you're tired, exhausted, not just by the world, but by the war inside you. But now you know true emotional immunity is not coldness. It is clarity. It's not about hiding. It's about expanding. Shadow work is the process that brings you here. Because when you understand your wounds, your triggers, your patterns, the actions of others lose their power to break you. You still feel. You still bleed. But you no longer drown. You still suffer. But you no longer disappear. And that changes everything. What protects you now isn't distance from life, it's depth. Because people who live at the surface get knocked down by every wave, but those who dive deep, they know the silence beneath. The stillness, the strength, the unmovable center. And that is where you're going. So when you begin to live from that place of presence, of integration, of radical acceptance, the world may still try to shake you. But the world won't know where to hit you anymore. If this video spoke to you, if something inside you stirred, leave a comment below. I choose awareness. Let's create a movement. A space for people who are done pretending, done performing, done surviving. It's time to live not with perfection, but with truth. And don't forget, the next video in this series is waiting. It's essential. Keep going. Because real transformation doesn't happen in one step. It begins when you refuse to stop. I'll see you there.